Morning, guys. Welcome to Footy Rants. We're into round 15 preview. As we all know, it's a shortened round this week due to State of Origin coming up next Wednesday. I'll be perfectly honest. I think we're sort of seeing the downside of Origin not being a standalone event now. I'm just not that excited for games this weekend. If I'm being completely transparent. Tonight we'll cover the first game. We got the Rabbitohs and the Titans. The Titans are injury ravaged as it is, and you got the key players like Hayne missing for Origin duty, but then you've got someone like the Rabbitohs who are pretty well unaffected. The experience that they have in their spine, like if we just have a look at this lineup now, like they've still got Walker, Sutton, Reynolds and Farrell, like their spine's unchanged, and then you've got to come up against the Titans down here, and you see Zillman. I don't think he's played fullback all year for the club, and then Chris McQueen playing six because LG's out and Tyrone Roberts is out. They're both out injured. McQueen and Taylor in the halves, and Pat Politoni on debut. So they're really scrounging the depth that they have in their 25-man squad. They've probably gone beyond. So, I think that's sort of the downside. But I guess if you're looking on the positive side, it is an opportunity for these guys to get some NRL experience that they may not have gotten if Origin wasn't the case, or if injuries sometimes they give people opportunities that could progress their career. I think with this game, just throwing a few stats, 11 of the last 14 games have been decided by 8 points or less between the club, but I think you have to sort of throw that out the window as far as relevance goes. When I've just rattled off the team list there, the Bunnies, they've been pretty close to a win for a number of weeks now. I thought they played a lot better against the Broncos last week, and were probably unlucky. Like we said, they sort of just went to sleep for that shortened period of 6 minutes, and the Broncos scored those two quick tries, and they were still in the game. Like the Rabbitohs scored again after that. So it's now or never. If they can't beat a depleted Titans side who really haven't showed anything close to the form that they carried when they had that good little run with a victory over the Storm and the Sharks, the two competition leaders. So we know that the potential that the Titans do have when they are performing at their best, but outside of that, I can't see it being much more than a Rabbitohs victory, and I think they've been pretty heavily supported 13 plus, and I'd be inclined to do the same, just simply because of the amount of change that we're seeing in that Titans squad, as you said there. Still a couple of mainstays, but otherwise you've got John Olive and Politoni on debut. So it'll be interesting to see how they stand up. There's still some big bodies in there. Kevin Proctor gets his first crack at first grade since being stood down for the cocaine scandal out the back of the Anzac Day test, so he'll be keen to put on a strong performance. But I just don't think they'll be able to compound 80 minutes of positive, constructive football. I can't see Chris McQueen offering up too much at six, but hey, stranger things that happen sometimes. Adversity trumps all. Moving on to the second game, so we got the Storm coming up against the Cowboys. I sort of had my coach's hat on a little bit earlier in the week when I was thinking about this, and I'm like, like two of the more affected clubs by Origin, so it's sort of good that I guess it's a level playing field. But when you're trying to, we're constantly talking about promoting the game and making the game bigger. It makes it so hard to do when you're taking a club like the Melbourne Storm, who are obviously trying to broaden their game in Melbourne. They've had success for so long, and they've got a great little fan base down there when they're up against the juggernauts of AFL and even the A-League to a certain extent. You want to be putting those 9 Origin players out there for both sides. So I think even to a degree that the coaches would want that as well. But as far as the game marketing goes, even the next couple of weeks, I'm pretty sure the Storm have the Roosters next week, and so you're going to be looking at a shit ton of Origin players backing up. So whilst even it's a small positive, at least they're on the field. Are they going to be performing at their best? Are players going to be rested again? Like, you just don't know. And speaking from personal experience, being a massive Cows supporter and just the sheer Queensland presence of the Storm side, a couple of years ago, me and my partner, we flew down to Melbourne to go watch the Cowboys play down there because, it's a great excuse to go to Melbourne, a bit of a different outlook, and obviously a bit more to do than what there is to do in Townsville. And it was a great weekend, a great experience. And to detract from that, I was planning on doing the exact same this year. I was looking at the game on the calendar, and then put two and two together and realised that both sides were going to be completely depleted with their Origin players, so there was no point in going. So I think that you're going to see a marked decrease in the crowd that they get for this game, just simply because of the players that they're missing. But again, looking on the other side of the spectrum, we get the opportunity to have a look at some players that we don't always get to see. So Curtis Scott gets his first run for the year. He's a bit of a loose cannon who's played for both the feeder sides for Melbourne now. He played at the Sunny Coast last year, and he's at East Tigers this year. And it'll be keen to see him have a dig. And I think for me, looking at it, sort of objectively, I think that the Storm are really going to struggle in the... I think the Cowboys are going to struggle in the sense that there's still so much strike power in this Storm outfit. You've still got Vunivalu and Addo-Carr on your wings. Munster and Riley Jacks, even though that's a bit of a new halves pairing for the club. Look, they've played 10 and 9 games respectively out of the 15 that this, or 14 to this point. So they don't come without experience. Still got some massive bodies up front. Bromwich, Asafa Solomona and Dale Finucane. And then you've got Felice Kafusi and Bromwich, Kenny Bromwich, who've been there just about all season as well. Brandy Smith gets his opportunity to come up against his old club. Never actually played NRL for the Cowboys, but was captain of their 20, so he'll be keen to rip in and no doubt try and get under the skin of a few of his other fellow Cowboys who'll be running around out there. Dean Britt's been named in the 17, so that'll be his debut game for the Storm, which I think is a really good thing to see. Earlier this week, he signed with the Rabbitohs, and it could have easily gone the other way and just be like, oh, well, he's sort of showed no loyalty to us. I guess we don't really know the circumstances on which he left, whether they sort of said, look, we're not looking to re-sign you or whatever. But yeah, I like that when players still get opportunities regardless. If you're doing a good job, you're doing a good job. And from more reports and seeing his performance in that Queensland residence earlier in the year, he's a big body, and I think he'll definitely fit into that Storm game plan very, very well. So yeah, just looking at that bench alone, Stimson's got plenty of experience this season. He continues to improve and improve and improve. Was probably unlucky not to get a few games last year as well. And Mark Nichols is a stereotypical Storm frame as well, as far as forwards are concerned. There's still a few, smokies on the bench there. Jeremy Hawkins has been playing some really good footy for the Sunny Coast. Brodie Croft is always playing outstanding football in reserve grade for East. Luai's big body, he's played a few games, and Jerome Hughes is obviously an ex-Cowboy as well, has been playing some good footy up the Sunny Coast, with them sitting second on the ladder. So, both teams performing for the feeders at the Storm. I think they're both in the top 5. So, yeah, just the form that they're even carrying in their reserve grade sides alone, I think, demonstrates why they'll be the better side. If we sort of scroll down a little bit further here, just look at this Cowboys outfit. I thought it was pretty interesting to still see Coot at fullback, and then Labert's been named for a second consecutive week, even though he didn't get his start in Darwin. I'd be very surprised if Labert and Thompson are the halves pairings. I would probably lean more to putting Coot in at 6 and then playing Ponga out the back. But yeah, whether that happens or not, we'll soon find out. I guess if you're going to throw a kid like Labert in on debut, now's probably a good opportunity. He's not going to be overawed by a Cooper Cronk or a Billy Slater or a Cam Smith or anyone like that. He can sort of just focus on his own game and know that they're sort of a genuine chance. But at the same time, like we said, the Storm have still got some key strike weapons out wide. Justin O'Neill will obviously be looking to put on a big performance since being dropped from the Queensland side, and I really hope he does go out there. You never want to see a player perform badly. You know, at the end of the day, rugby league, it is just a game, and you know, these players, this is their well-being, and you know, there's emotion involved, and you don't ever want to wish anything actually unjust against a person. So yeah, it's a shame to see him dropped, and I think most of us were sort of calling for his head out of that side, and especially after he made that error which led directly to a try. And you know, at the same time, it is a business, and it is your job. You've got to sort of live and die by the sword. So yeah, I hope he goes out there and has a cracking game. But yeah, we'll soon see how he responds. So yeah, we see the bench there. We got Ben Hampton, Sean Fenson, Ben Spina, Corey Jensen. And then in the reserves, you still got Ueli, Ponga, Margot, and Blake Leary. So don't be surprised if you do see Ponga and Leary sneak their way into that 17. I think just with a little bit of experience and good form that Leary's been having this year, don't be surprised if he finds his way into that side. But yeah, they've obviously been sticking with Ben Hampton more often than not. You see there he's got 12 of the 14 starts this season. So you know, they're obviously happy with the role that he's playing for the side and continue to do so. Yeah, it's going to be a big job for these North Queensland forwards, Asiata Bolton and Taumalolo up front, and then you've got Linnett playing in the back row. That's another thing that sort of concerns me. You're sort of changing around your edge defence, and if Labert does debut, then you're going to be completely changing an edge defence, and obviously, you know, your back row, half, centre, those three need to have a very, very strong relationship defensively and communicatively to make sure that they're executing those reads when teams throwing shape at them, and the shape that, you know, we know even without certain players in that side, the Storm are just going to be ruthless executors. So that would be a place that I'm looking to exploit. The Cowboys would be on Kane Linnett's edge if they do end up sticking with Labert and Thompson in the halves. But for me, there hasn't really been too much money from what I've been reading, 13 plus for either side. But I'd actually be leaning, I wouldn't be surprised, you know, if they just clear, you know, if the Storm win by maybe 12 to 16 points, I think they might just creep away. But again, you can never write off the Cowboys, and if Cooten and Thompson and Granville and Taumalolo can steer the ship enough, you know, there's probably enough talent there that can generate some stability. But yeah, I think the battering rams that the Storm still possess, and the fact that Vunivalu and Adokara are still able to finish so ruthlessly, I think will be enough to get them home, and perhaps 13 plus. On to the next game. So game 3, we got the Sharkies up against the Tigers. So obviously Sharkies are depleted once more. They did get away with a 1-point victory over the Bulldogs last time. They had to be without their origin stars, adding on top of the fact now that they're without Valentine Holmes with his origin debut call-up. So it will be interesting to see how they respond, but then you look to the other side, and the Tigers are now without Woods and Tedesco, who we know pretty much have been steering that Tigers ship for an extended period of time now. A big plus for them, they see Luke Brooks come back into the side, so Lolohira and Brooks will partner for the first time. Nguama switches to a fullback with Tedesco out, and Malachi Wutini-Zelezniak gets another crack at first grade for the Tigers since moving over from Penrith. You know, I see someone like Tim Grant named in a starting side at the NRL. Yes, he brings a wealth of experience, and he's definitely not going to take a backward step. But you know, when you're coming up against this still formidable Sharks forward pack, like, have a look at this. You know, Tagatisi, Pryor, Lewis, Bakuya, and Gallen. Like, that's still a solid team. And then you've got, you know, the experience, Hyington, Lattimore, and Paulo coming off the bench. I really like the option of Mortimer. So this will be his first crack this season. We've got to remember this guy's played in an NRL Grand Final for Parramatta. So, you know, he's no Joe Bloggs. He's going to go out there and do a job. And yeah, I'm really happy to see his name in there and getting a crack. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Brown goes in partnering Townsend again. Obviously did a reasonable job last hit out and did enough to get a win. So you can't really ask for much more than that. Um, it's just going to be sheer power and experience that I think the Sharks will overcome the Tigers with. And for me, I think it's still potential to blow out 13 plus for the Sharkies. So that's where I'd be putting my money, especially. I know they haven't had the best run at home, but they'll be keen to continue to build on that, especially after going down to the Storm last week in a game that they most definitely should have won. Yeah, so for me, it's the Sharkies 13 plus, and just one last little mention for the Tigers. We see Matt Eisenhuth. I hope I pronounced that correctly. He's on debut, so I did a little bit of background on him. He came through from the Wentworthville Magpies, Parramatta Junior, obviously coming through that system. Played a little bit at Penrith as well, so all out west of Sydney, and then ended up getting a part-time contract with the Tigers, earned a full-time contract, and in reserve grade at the moment. He's been averaging like over 50 tackles a game and 100 metres. So he's actually the cousin of Paul Gallen, believe it or not. So he'll get his chance to hopefully rip into his cousin. And yeah, he's a big body by the look of it. Up over 190 centimetres and well over 100 kilos. So yeah, it would be a good asset, and it's good to see. Again, I guess that's the positive side of these origin periods, is that we get to see some kids on display that we might not have otherwise been afforded to see. So if that origin eventually down the track does get moved to a standalone game, we're probably going to be subjected to not as many kids getting that little drip feed of experience as we normally would see. The final game of the round, so only 4 games, as we said at the top of the podcast. That we got Parramatta up against the Dragons. Para favourites for this game. We see up top there, $1.70 versus $2.20. So Dragons are $2.20 outsiders. It's pretty evenly poised in my opinion. And I would think it would be probably closer to just about even money. Norman and Moses will get another opportunity. They still are going to leave Gutherson out on that edge. Ava'a comes back into the side, but will go onto the wing. So again, you're changing that right edge defensive structure for Parramatta. That's a concern for me, because they got exploited a few times in that 32-6 drubbing by the Cowboys last week. The fact that the spine is staying the same is obviously a big plus for Parramatta. And if we scroll further down, we know that Dugan and Tyson Frizzell are out for the Dragons with their origin commitments. So we've seen Nightingale, who's done a job at one previously with Dugan being injured a number of times this year. Man, we know defensively he's Mr. Fix-It, and he'll do a job. But for me, just because of that edge defense changing again for Para, Khalifa Faifai-Loa, we see there, he's only played 1 game against the Warriors earlier this year, scored 2 tries, and leading up to that, he hadn't even scored a try in reserve grade. So, you can tell that means something to the bloke coming back up, playing first grade. He wants to rip in it and put on performances whenever he gets the opportunity. So, had a little bit of a look. He's paying $13 first try scorer or $2.60 anytime try scorer. The fact that Widdop's still there is still a massive plus for the Dragons. Anytime that they can sort of get creative around Widdop and let him start getting his running game and short kicking game, long kicking game, when he's pulling more of the strings for the Dragons and Macrone's just sort of there in support, that's when the Dragons look the best. Look, it was sort of a funny outcome for the Dragons last week. I thought their forwards still stood up. I thought Thompson and DeBellin were still exceptional, and Packer and Vaughan didn't really take a backward step, but I don't know, they just couldn't really finish it and find the line when they needed to, and probably just let the Bulldogs build too much pressure in conjunction of too many time periods. So if they can overcome that, and these 2 blokes down here, Selly and Milne, can alleviate some of the errors and poor reads that they came up with last week, I think they'll go a long way to beating Parramatta. I still really like this Parramatta team on paper, but again, it's this bloke here, Mitchell Moses, that's sort of doing heads for me, especially defensively. Just seeing that effort. If I knew that a bloke like that is not even keen to put his body in front week in, week out, I'd severely start to question his commitment to the team. And if Gutherson again has to make 20 odd tackles to try and cover the bullshit attempts that Moses makes, I think it's going to be a really long day. The fact that we look down, the Dragons, like, look at this forward pack still, as we've already said. Packer, Vaughan, Sims, Thompson, DeBellin, like, they'll make you pay. And you've still got, Armour and Milne, Sele, Host coming off the bench. Like, there's some big bodies there. So I was reasonably surprised that Parramatta was favourites, but again, I can see why. Also, we see down here that Jennings has been named in the reserves, so if he does find his way into the team, it's going to be interesting. I don't know what sort of changes they will make, whether they drop Avara and push Gutherson out onto the wing. Again, that changes edge defence even further, and I think you're getting Gutherson even further out of the game by putting him on the wing. But you'd have to think Jennings is pretty close if he's been named in the reserves. Is Jennings the linchpin that may turn the game? Potentially. It would probably start to sway my decision, just the sheer firepower. But for me, it's up front. I definitely think that the Dragons can match them up front. Obviously, Frizzell does bring a heap of experience and punch for that Dragons forward pack. But yeah, I still like the consistency. These guys in Widdop and Macrone, that they were competition leaders for the first quarter of the season, and we're doing a job with just about this side. You add those two Origin players back in who obviously do add a lot, but that's your form team of the comp. No, they haven't performed probably over the last 6+ weeks, but it's on them to try and alleviate some of those things. You're looking at a team like Parramatta in comparison to Bulldogs. They're not going to be able to defend a team like the Dragons out of the game like the Bulldogs did last week. There's definitely, like we've seen, fractures in that Parramatta defence. So if they can execute at key times, as they should have last week, and perhaps even with the level of execution they have last week, they'll probably have more success against a defensive outfit like Parramatta. So it's a bit of a coin toss, this one, but for me, I'm actually going to lean towards the Dragons. I'm going to tip the upset and say that the Dragons will get the job done. So yeah, that's just about it for this week, guys. I'll come back and do a review, as always, do at the start of next week, and we'll do an Origin preview and a breakdown, so there'll be plenty of content posted next week. So yeah, my tips this week, I'm leaning towards Rabbitohs 13+, Storm 13+, Sharks 1-12. You just don't know. It could go either way. But I still think, regardless of 13+, 1-12, I think the Sharks will win it. And I'm going to take Dragons 1-12. So that's us, guys. Have a legendary week. Be safe. Enjoy the footy. Make the most of it. Again, I know I'm going to continue to blow up. I don't think the Storm and Cowboys should be playing this weekend. So maybe get out and watch some local footy instead. All right, team. Have a good weekend. Bye.